The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with silence. Alien leaders from hundreds of worlds sat around a shining circular chamber. Their eyes glowed with fear, not anger. Their voices whispered like shadows, and their words carried a heavy truth. At the center of the hall stood the High Speaker, a tall figure with silver skin that shimmered like glass. His voice echoed through the chamber, deep and strong. "The humans must be kept away from this war," he declared. The words spread like a storm, shaking the hearts of every listener. The Council had faced many threats in the galaxy. They had fought empires that spanned star systems. They had crushed rebellions that threatened peace. But this time, their enemy was different. This enemy was older than any empire, darker than any rebellion. It was a force that consumed planets, that destroyed entire civilizations. Yet, when the Council spoke of the enemy, they spoke less of fear of the darkness, and more of fear of one species, humans. If they join this war, the High Speaker said, the galaxy itself may burn. Whispers filled the chamber. A scaled ambassador hissed in disbelief. Humans are young. Their fleets are small. Why should they matter? Another alien with wings folded tight shook her head. It is not their power, she said. It is their nature. The chamber grew colder. The Council remembered the history of humans, a species that rose from small blue world, a people who never stopped fighting. When threatened, they grew stronger. When cornered, they broke through impossible walls. When told to stay away, they always stepped forward. The High Speaker raised his hand. His silver skin glowed brighter. "We have seen what humans can do," he said. "When they fight, they change the battle. When they bleed, they rise again. When they win, they never stop. This war is not for them. It is too dangerous, too deep, too old." But even as the Council gave their warning, a strange silence filled the room, for deep in their hearts, many aliens already feared the truth. If humans were forbidden, they would not obey. Humans were not made to stay silent. On Earth, light from the stars reached the great meeting halls of human leaders. Messages from the Galactic Council were delivered by shining drones. The warning was simple. Do not interfere in the war, stay out, or risk destruction. In the United Earth Assembly, leaders argued. Some said the Council was wise. Humans were too weak, too unprepared. Others said the warning was an insult. "They fear us," one general whispered. "They fear what we can do." Captain Elias Ward sat quietly in the chamber. His face was calm, but his mind burned with fire. He had seen war before. He had fought on Earth, on Mars, and on the colonies. He knew what humans were capable of. He also knew that warnings never stopped his people. When the meeting ended, Elias walked through the silent halls of the assembly. The stars shone outside the tall glass windows. He remembered the Council's words. Humans must stay away from this war. He almost laughed, because he knew the truth. Humans had never stayed away from any war. That night, as Earth slept, rumors spread. Some whispered that the Council feared humans not because they were weak, but because they were too strong. Others said the Council knew something terrible, something hidden. Perhaps the enemy was not afraid of the Council at all. Perhaps it was only afraid of humans. In the cold halls of the Galactic Council, the High Speaker returned to his chamber. He looked into the stars. His reflection shimmered on the glass walls. He whispered to himself, "If the humans enter this war, the galaxy will never be the same." But far away, Captain Elias Ward stood at the window of his command ship. His eyes sharp, his hands clenched. He did not speak, but his silence was a promise. The Council could warn all they wanted, but humanity would decide its own path. The galaxy was on the edge of storm. The enemy was waiting in the dark. The Council was trembling, and the humans, though warned, were already listening to the call of war. The warning from the Galactic Council spread across Earth like a shadow. The message was played on every news channel, written across every data screen, and whispered in every colony. Humans must stay away from this war. The words were meant to bring fear, but instead they lit a fire. In the United Earth Assembly, leaders gathered again. Their voices rose and clashed like thunder. Some shouted that the Council was right. "We cannot risk our people," said the Prime Minister of Europa. "This war is not ours. We must protect what we have." Others struck the table with their fists, their eyes burning. "The Council fears us. argued General Kaido. They want us weak. They want us to sit quietly while they decide the future of the galaxy. Captain Elias Ward sat at the edge of the chamber, watching. His dark eyes scan the room as politicians argued. He saw fear, pride, and anger mixing like a storm. When he finally stood, silence spread. His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. Humans have never been told to stay behind, he said. When danger rises, we rise too. If the Council believes this war is too dangerous for us, then maybe it is exactly where we belong. The chamber broke into chaos. Some cheered, others cursed his name. But outside the assembly, people began to talk on Mars. Miners shouted that humans should not hide. On the colonies of Titan and Europa, soldiers whispered that if there was a fight, they would join. On Earth itself, students marched through the streets carrying signs. "We are not afraid," they cried. The Council's warning had the opposite effect. Instead of silence, it brought rebellion. Instead of fear, it brought defiance. Far away, in the hidden chambers of the Council, the High Speaker watched reports from Earth, his silver skin dimmed. His voice cracked as he spoke to his advisors. "I told them to stay away. I told them it would destroy them." One advisor, a shadowy figure with glowing eyes, hissed, "You told them the truth, but truth never stops humans. They do not fear death. They do not fear warnings. They fear only chains." Back on Earth, Captain Elias Ward returned to his ship, the Resolute. The crew was restless. Every man and woman had seen the Council's message. Some asked quietly if they would obey. Others sharpened their blades and polished their armor. Waiting for orders, Elias walked among them, his boots heavy against the steel floor. Finally, he spoke. "The Council may fear us," he said, "but we will not hide. We will not let others decide our place. If there is a war, then we will see it with our own eyes." The crew roared with approval. The sound echoed through the ship like thunder. As days passed, more human ships prepared in secret. The assembly tried to hold them back, but whispers of rebellion grew louder. Small fleets trained in hidden regions of space. Captains ignored orders, soldiers gathered, pilots tested their wings. Humanity was moving, even if its leaders hesitated. But the Council was not blind. They saw the human preparations. They sent envoys, golden ships filled with alien diplomats. They begged, they threatened, they warned. Still, the humans only smiled. They were polite, but behind their eyes burned a fire that no warning could put out. Captain Elias Ward was called to a private meeting with the Prime Minister of Earth. The leader's face was tired, his voice heavy. "Elias, the Council is powerful. If we defy them, we may lose everything." Elias looked at him, his jaw tight. "We may lose everything if we obey," he answered. "We cannot let fear chain us, not now, not ever." The Prime Minister said nothing, but in his silence, Elias found his answer. That night, the Resolute left orbit. Its engines glowed like fire against the stars. It was not the only one. Across the colonies, ships were moving, some small, some mighty, all with one purpose. Humanity would not stay behind. In the cold dark of space, Captain Elias stood at the command deck. The stars stretched before him like an endless ocean. He remembered the Council's words. He remembered the fear in their alien eyes. He clenched his fists. "If they fear us, let them. If they want us to stay away, we will not. Humanity chooses its own wars." And so, even before the first human shot was fired, the choice was made. The Council had warned them, but humans had never been a species of silence. They were a species of defiance. And now, the galaxy would soon remember it. The Resolute drifted through the black sea of space. Her hull shimmered with the light of distant stars, and inside, her crew waited in silence. For days, they had traveled beyond human borders, slipping quietly through regions the Council had forbidden. Every moment felt heavier than the last. Every second carried the weight of their choice. Captain Elias Ward stood at the front of the command deck. His hands were clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the stars. The Council had warned them that this war was too dangerous, too ancient. But Elias knew that sooner or later, they would see the truth with their own eyes. Then it came. Sensors picked up a faint signal, a cry for help, broken, desperate, filled with static. "This is the starship Valar," the voice crackled. "We are under attack. We cannot hold much longer," any allies respond. The crew froze. The Valar was not a human ship. It belonged to the Selari, a proud species allied with the Council. The crew looked to Elias, waiting. If they answered, humanity's presence would be revealed. If they ignored the call, they would be safe, but silence was not in human nature. "Bring us closer," Elias commanded. His voice was calm, but firm. The Resolute shifted course, engines burning bright as it sped toward the signal. Soon, the blackness of space lit up with fire. Ships clashed against one another in violent bursts of light. Alien weapons tore through shields. Debris floated like ghosts. And in the center, the Selari ship fought alone, surrounded by monstrous vessels unlike any the humans had seen before. The enemy ships were vast and jagged, their hulls black as shadow. They moved like predators, swift and merciless. Their weapons pulsed with crimson light that burned through steel. The Valar's shields flickered weakly, each strike shaking her apart. "Sir," the helmsman whispered, "if we help them, the Council will know." Elias's eyes never left the battle. "Then let them know," he said. "Prepare weapons." The Resolute roared into battle. Her cannons lit the dark. Streams of burning energy tore into the nearest enemy vessel. The alien predator twisted, shocked by the sudden attack. For the first time, the Selari ship saw hope. "Who are you?" the voice of the Selari captain cried through comms. "Why would you risk yourselves?" Elias's reply was sharp. "Because you asked for help." The battle burned hotter. Enemy ships turned their fire on the Resolute. The hull shook. Sparks flew across the bridge. Crew members shouted as alarms screamed. But still they fought. Every strike they gave was stronger than the last. Every hit they took only pushed them further. The Selari regrouped, inspired by the humans' courage. Together, they struck back. One enemy ship exploded in a storm of fire. Another limped away, broken. The tide began to turn, not because of numbers, but because of defiance. Yet in the heart of the chaos, Elias saw something the Council had never spoken of. When one enemy vessel was torn apart, its broken pieces did not drift like ordinary wreckage. Instead, the shards moved with purpose, reshaping, crawling back into each other, until slowly, terribly, the ship began to rebuild itself. "What is this?" Elias muttered. His crew stared in horror as the enemy ship rose again from its own ruins. The Selari captain's voice trembled. "Now you see it. This is why the Council warned you. These are not normal foes. They do not die. They feed on war itself." But the humans did not break. Their ship was damaged, their shields weak, but their fire never stopped. If the enemy rebuilt, then the humans would strike again and again and again, until nothing was left. At last, the surviving enemy ships pulled back, retreating into the black void. The battlefield fell quiet, only debris drifting in silence. The Selari ship flickered with weak lights, barely alive. The Resolute floated beside it, scarred but still standing. Elias opened comms. His voice was calm, steady. "You're safe now." The Selari captain's voice was filled with disbelief. "Humans, you should not be here, but without you, we would be dead. Perhaps the Council fears you, for good reason." Elias gave no answer. He only looked into the stars. He knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had stepped into the war, and there was no turning back. Far away, the Galactic Council received the reports. The High Speaker's silver skin darkened. His voice was heavy with sorrow. "They have defied us. They have entered the war." And deep in the shadows beyond the stars, the enemy stirred, their crimson light glowing brighter, for the humans had been revealed, and now the true war would begin. The Resolute drifted beside the wounded Selari ship. The battlefield was quiet now, but it was not peace. Wreckage floated in the dark. Enemy remains twisted and broken, but even shattered pieces still twitched with unnatural life. Inside the human ship, the crew worked without rest. Sparks burned from broken panels. Wounded soldiers groaned as medics rushed to help them. Captain Elias Ward stood tall on the bridge, his uniform torn, his face marked with smoke. His eyes were fixed on the screens, replaying what they had witnessed, enemy ships that refused to die, fragments crawling back together like living shadows. "Sir," the helmsman whispered. "That was no ordinary fleet. What are we fighting?" Elias did not answer, because the truth was clawing at his mind. He had seen war, he had seen death, but never ships that rebuilt themselves, never enemies that seemed alive even after destruction. The Salari captain appeared on the hollow screen, her face pale, her voice heavy. "Now you understand," she said. "This is the enemy the council feared. They're called the Vair. They're not flesh, not machine, but something older, something born from the dark between the stars." The crew listened in silence. The Salari captain continued. "The Vair do not conquer worlds. They consume them. They feed on fire, on fear, on destruction. Every battle makes them stronger. Every death gives them life. The council hope to keep you away, not because you are weak, but because they know you're kind. They know humans never stop fighting, and the Vair feed on endless war." The words sank into the crew like cold iron. Some shivered, others clenched their fists, but Elias stood still, his jaw tight. His voice was sharp. "So the council lied. They told us the war was too dangerous, but they never told us why. They feared that we would feed this enemy." The Salari captain's eyes dimmed. "Yes, they feared your courage, your defiance. The very thing that makes you dangerous to the galaxy also makes you dangerous to yourselves. Humans are fuel to the Vair." The crew exchanged uneasy glances for a moment. Even their fires seemed shaken, but Elias did not waver. He stepped forward, his voice low but steady. "If this enemy grows stronger from war, then we must fight them in a way they cannot feed on. We must fight differently than the council. We must fight as humans." The Salari captain frowned. "You do not understand. The Vair have no end. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be destroyed by normal means. The council believes the only way to survive is to limit battle, to contain the Vair, but you humans, you cannot contain yourselves." Elias turned to his crew. His eyes burned with the fire that no alien warning could dim. "If the Vair feed on fear, then we will give them none. If they grow from destruction, then we will strike them in ways they cannot rebuild. If the council hides, we will step forward. Humanity does not run." A silence filled the bridge. It was not fear. It was determination. The crew nodded, one by one. Their captain's words were not just orders. They were a promise. But far away, in the hidden halls of the council, the High Speaker sat in darkness. Reports of the Resolute's defiance filled the chamber. His silver skin glowed faintly. His advisors surrounded him, their voices trembling. "The humans have seen the Vair. They will never turn back now. We must prepare." The High Speaker closed his eyes. "Yes, they will not stop. And that is what we feared most. The Vair will use them, twist them, until this war burns brighter than any before." Back on the Resolute, the Salari ship moved slowly beside them. Its hull torn, its lights dim. The Salari captain's voice returned, softer now. "Humans, you have entered a war older than your species. If you continue, there will be no turning back. The Vair will come for you, and they will not stop." Elias Ward stood at the viewport, staring at the stars. His reflection was hard, unbroken. "Then let them come," he whispered. "Humanity has always faced the impossible. This will be no different." The truth had been revealed. The enemy was not just another alien race, but a force of hunger and shadow. The council had feared the humans because they knew the truth. Humans would never obey warnings. They would fight. And in fighting, they would awaken something even darker. Yet the choice was made. Humanity would not turn back. The council's secret was broken. The enemy was known. And in the silence between the stars, the first true war had already begun. The Resolute returned to human space with scars across her hull. The crew carried the weight of what they had seen. The Salari captain's words echoed in their minds. The Vair feed on war itself. Every battle makes them stronger, yet the humans did not retreat. Instead, they prepared. In the assembly chambers on Earth, leaders raged in confusion. Some shouted that Elias Ward had doomed them all. Others claimed he had done what no one else dared. The council's secret was out. The enemy was not a simple army, but a living hunger, and now humanity stood at the edge of its greatest choice. Elias was summoned before the assembly. He stood tall, His uniform darkened with ash, his eyes sharp. "Captain Ward," one leader said, "you defied the Galactic Council. You placed our people in danger, and now you bring us an enemy that cannot be destroyed." Elias's reply was calm. "No enemy is without weakness. The Ver may feed on war, but they have not faced humans before. We do not fight like others. We do not surrender. We gamble when all logic says we should fall, and that gamble is our strength." The chamber erupted in argument. Some shouted for retreat. Others demanded battle, but outside those walls, the people had already chosen. Across Earth, Mars, and the colonies, humans prepared ships, soldiers trained, pilots volunteered. They whispered a single phrase: "If the Council fears us, then we will show them why." The Council sent envoys again. They begged humanity to stay out. They warned of extinction, but the warnings were ignored, for every warning only made humanity's will stronger. The more they were told to stop, the more determined they became to step forward. On the Resolute, Elias gathered his officers. They studied every piece of data from the battle. They watched the enemy ships rebuild themselves. They listened to the Solari's warnings. One officer spoke: "If they feed on destruction, then every strike we make is fuel for them. How do we fight something that grows stronger with every battle?" Elias placed his hand on the table. "We fight them in ways they cannot expect. We fight not with numbers, not with endless fire, but with our gamble, with our unpredictability, with the one thing they cannot calculate: human defiance." The officers nodded. They knew it was not strategy alone that would win, but the human spirit, a force no alien had ever truly understood. Soon, humanity's small fleets began their first campaigns. They struck not with brute force, but with daring moves. They lured their ships into traps. They cut off their formations. They attacked, and then vanished, striking from places no one thought possible. For the first time, the Ver hesitated. Yet the risk was immense. Every battle meant feeding the enemy. Every strike meant giving them more strength. It was a dangerous gamble, but humanity had always thrived in danger. They were willing to risk everything for even the smallest chance of victory. News spread across the galaxy. The humans were fighting, and they were not losing. Alien races watched in shock. Some saw them as fools, others as hope. Whispers traveled through alien markets. The humans fight the Ver, and the Ver do not know how to break them. The Council grew restless. In the Grand Chamber, leaders argued. "If they win, they will reshape the galaxy," one ambassador cried. "If they lose, they will bring the Ver upon us all." The High Speaker said nothing. He only watched the stars. He knew the truth. Humanity's gamble could save the galaxy or destroy it. Back on the battlefield, Captain Elias Ward faced another storm. The Resolute led a small fleet into uncharted space, chasing a cluster of Ver ships. His crew was tired, their shields cracked, but their eyes were steady. Elias stood on the bridge, his voice steady. "We gamble everything today. We may win, or we may fall, but we will never be forgotten." The battle erupted. Light and fire tore across the void. The Ver struck with fury, rebuilding themselves with every hit. But the humans fought with reckless brilliance, sacrificing ships to save others, turning weakness into strength. Each loss was a blade, each strike a defiance. When the smoke cleared, the Ver had been forced to retreat. For the first time in living memory, they had withdrawn. Humanity's gamble had worked, not through strength, but through sheer unpredictability. On the Resolute's bridge, cheers erupted. Soldiers wept with relief. Elias allowed himself a small smile. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. "But today we proved the Council wrong. Humanity will not run. Humanity will fight." And across the stars, the galaxy trembled, for the humans had gambled with fire, and for now, they had won. The news spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, whispers rose in every marketplace, every council hall, every shadowed outpost. The humans had faced the Ver, and the Ver had retreated. For countless civilizations, this was impossible. For the Council, it was terrifying. In hidden chambers, the High Speaker faced his advisors. His silver skin dimmed like fading light. "The humans are not destroying the Ver," he said. "They're confusing them. They fight in ways the enemy cannot predict, but every battle still feeds the Veer. The more they fight, the more dangerous this becomes, one advisor hissed. Then stop them, break their fleets before they doom us all. But another whispered, what if they succeed? What if they're the only ones who can? While the council argued, humanity moved. The Resolute led fleets across forgotten star systems. They did not fight for territory. They fought to disrupt, to outthink, to outmaneuver. Where the Veer expected direct assaults, humans set ambushes. Where the Veer expected fear, humans answered with defiance. Each battle was a storm of chaos. And in that chaos, the humans thrived. Aliens began to notice. Small species long crushed under fear of the Veer saw hope. The Cellari spread word of the humans' bravery. The miners of the Cairn sent supplies. The traders of the Voss offered secret routes through hidden starways. And soon, whispers became alliances. Slowly, carefully, other races began to join the humans. On the Resolute's bridge, Elias Ward studied the growing fleet. Once it had been a single ship, now dozens of alien vessels flew beside them, scarred and worn, but burning with new courage. His first officer spoke. Captain, the galaxy is watching. They believe in us. Elias nodded, his voice calm. Then we cannot fail. We do not carry only human hopes anymore. We carry the fire of every world that dares to fight. The next clash came without warning. The Veer descended on a Cellari colony. Their ships fell like shadows, consuming light. The Cellari prepared for the end, but instead, a human fleet arrived, human ships, alien allies, fighting together as one. The Veer struck with endless fury, rebuilding with every blow. But this time, they faced not one species, but many, united under human defiance. The battle raged for hours. Fire ripped across the sky. Shields cracked, hulls burned, but the humans never yielded. They used tricks the Veer could not anticipate. Sudden feints, daring charges, sacrifices that turned defeat into victory. The aliens who fought beside them felt something they had not known in centuries: hope. When the last Veer ship fell into retreat, the colony stood, broken but alive. The Cellari cheered, their voices echoing across the stars. The humans fight with madness. One alien elder whispered, but their madness gives us courage. Far away, in the council chamber, chaos spread. They are changing the war, one ambassador cried. They inspire rebellion. They rally the weak. If this continues, the galaxy will follow them. Not us. The High Speaker listened in silence, his eyes heavy. Perhaps that is already happening, he said. On the Resolute, Elias stood at the viewport, staring into the endless dark. His ship was battered, his people exhausted, but the fleet was stronger than ever. Behind him, his officers spoke of the next campaign, of allies waiting to join. Elias listened, but his mind carried the weight of what was coming. For he knew the truth. Humanity had turned the tide. They had forced the Veer to hesitate. They had united species who once lived in fear, but every victory carried a cost. The Veer were learning too. They were adapting, and soon they would strike with fury unlike anything seen before. Still, Elias's voice was steady as he spoke. We have lit a fire. It cannot be put out. Not by fear, not by warnings, not by shadows. The council may tremble, the Veer may rage, but we will fight, and we will not stop until the galaxy is free. The fleet roared in answer. Ships of humans and aliens alike lit their engines, burning together against the darkness. The war was far from over, but for the first time, the galaxy believed it could be won. And in the silence beyond, the Veer stirred, watching, waiting, hungry, for the humans had changed the tide, and now the true storm was coming. The galaxy was no longer silent. Where once there had been fear, now there were voices rising in unity. Across forgotten colonies, across broken worlds, the name of humanity spread like fire. The humans fight. The humans do not surrender. The humans defy the Veer. But in the dark between stars, the enemy stirred. The Veer did not rest. They learned, they adapted. Their ships came back stronger, sharper, faster. For every victory the humans won, the Veer grew hungrier. The council watched in dread, torn between fear and awe. In the Grand Chamber of the Council, ambassadors argued, "The humans are reckless." One cried, "They will burn us all." Another whispered, "But they are winning battles we never could." The High Speaker rose, his silver skin glowing dim. His voice shook. "The humans have changed the war. We can no longer command them. We can only choose whether we stand beside them or be left behind." Meanwhile, aboard the Resolute, Captain Elias Ward stood at the viewport. His reflection burned against the stars. His crew waited for his word, tired but unbroken. Around them, the fleet was larger than ever. Cellari warships, Voss traders, Karen miners turned soldiers, and countless others who once trembled under the shadow of the Veer. Now they flew together, united not by orders but by defiance. Elias spoke softly, but every word carried weight. "The council warned us to stay away, but we did not. They told us we would feed the enemy, but we did not hide. We have shown them that war is not just destruction. It can also be courage, sacrifice, unity. Humanity has given the galaxy something the Veer cannot consume: hope." The crew listened, their eyes shining. They knew the truth. The gamble had not ended the war, but it had changed it, and in that change was the seed of victory. The next battle came without warning. The Veer descended on a council stronghold, expecting silence, expecting fear, but they found a fleet waiting. Humans and aliens standing side by side. The battle was brutal, shields shattered, hulls burned, screams echoed through the void. Yet the united fleet held. For every ship that fell, another rose. For every loss, defiance grew. The Veer were forced to retreat again. Across the galaxy, races that had once hidden in fear now raised their banners. The Council could no longer deny the truth. Humanity had done what no other species dared. They had taken the warning and turned it into a war cry. When the dust of battle cleared, the Council called for a new assembly. This time, the chamber was not filled with fear. It was filled with fire. The High Speaker raised his hand, his silver skin gleaming. "We once told the humans to stay away," he said, "but today we see the truth. They are not a danger to avoid. They are a force to follow. Humanity has reshaped this war, and with them, we may yet survive." The declaration spread like lightning. Humanity was no longer a forbidden species. They were leaders of the fight, and for the first time, the Council bowed not in warning, but in respect. On the Resolute, Elias stood with his officers, his gaze fixed on the horizon of stars. The galaxy was scarred. The enemy was not defeated, but something greater had been born, a future where humans were no longer strangers, but equals, allies, even leaders. Elias's voice was steady as he spoke. "The Veer are not finished. They will return. They will test us, but we will be ready. Humanity will not stand alone. The galaxy fights together now, and together we will not fall." The fleet engines roared, thousands of lights burning across the void. Humanity had entered the war against every warning. They had gambled everything and changed the fate of countless worlds. And as the ships moved forward into the endless dark, one truth echoed across the stars: the galaxy would never be the same again.